Jenna slammed her foot on the brake, her old Honda sputtering its last breaths on the desolate highway. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked asphalt. Her phone displayed "no service," a shiver crawling down her spine. Miles of empty road stretched before her, the silence broken only by the chirping of crickets. Just as despair began to set in, a faded neon sign flickered in the distance. Pine Hollow Motel. Vacancy. Relief washed over Jenna, quickly replaced by a sense of unease as she pulled into the motel's gravel driveway. Weeds sprouted through cracks in the pavement, and the paint peeled from the dilapidated building like sunburnt skin. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and something else she couldn't quite place. A musty, almost sweet odour that sent a prickle of apprehension across her skin. With a sigh, she grabbed her bag and headed towards the flickering neon sign, hoping for the best but bracing herself for the worst. The motel office was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the same unsettling scent from outside. Behind the counter sat a man, his face obscured by the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. He looked up as Jenna approached, his eyes two dark pools in the gloom, sending another shiver down her spine. "Room!" he rasped, his voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. Jenna swallowed, pushing down the urge to turn and run. "Just for the night," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. The man, who introduced himself as Ed, pushed a registration form and a tarnished key across the counter. His eyes held hers for a beat too long, making her skin crawl. She quickly filled out the form, her hand trembling slightly. Ed took the form without a word, his gaze lingering on her again before pointing a gnarled finger down a dark hallway. "Room 7, he croaked, the sound catching in his throat. "End of the hall." Jenna took the key, her stomach twisting into knots. As she turned to leave, she thought she heard Ed mutter something under his breath, but she couldn't quite make it out. Jenna couldn't shake the feeling of unease as she walked down the dimly lit hallway, the musty smell intensifying with each step. Ed's words echoed in her mind. Room 7. End of the hall. There was something about the way he said it, a strange emphasis that sent chills down her spine. She reached the end of the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. Room 7. The door creaked open, revealing a small, sparsely furnished room. Dust motes danced in the single beam of moonlight that sliced through the darkness. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Jenna dropped her bag on the bed, the springs groaning in protest. Her eyes darted around the room, finally landing on a faded photograph on the nightstand. It depicted a young boy, no older than 10, with sad eyes and a mischievous grin. He wore clothes that looked like they were from another era. Something about the boy's gaze unsettled Jenna, sending a fresh wave of unease washing over her. Exhaustion finally overtook Jenna, and she collapsed onto the bed, the photograph of the boy still imprinted on her mind. Sleep came in fitful bursts, plagued by strange dreams and the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the window pane sent her heart racing. Then she heard it, footsteps pacing outside her door. Slow, deliberate footsteps that seemed to stop right outside her room. Jenna held her breath, her heart pounding in her ears. The footsteps continued for what felt like hours, each step sending a jolt of fear through her. Finally, just as she thought she would scream, they stopped. Silence descended once more, heavy and suffocating. She lay awake until dawn, too terrified to close her eyes. The image of the boy in the photograph burned into her mind. The next morning, Jenna stumbled out of room 7, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere. She found Ed in the office, his face still hidden beneath the shadow of his hat. He looked up as she approached, his dark eyes seeming to bore into her soul. "Leaving so soon?" he rasped, a hint of amusement in his voice. Jenna just nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She practically ran out of the motel, not daring to look back. As she drove away, she glanced back at the Pine Hollow Motel, its dilapidated facade even more sinister in the harsh light of day. And then she saw him. Standing by the window of room 7, the young boy from the photograph stared out at her, his sad eyes following her car as it sped away. Jenna gasped, her foot heavy on the accelerator. Shaken to her core, Jenna couldn't shake off the horrifying encounter at the Pine Hollow Motel. The ghostly boy's image, his piercing gaze, haunted her thoughts. Desperate for answers, she researched the motel's history, stumbling upon a chilling local legend. Decades ago, a young boy had tragically died on those very grounds, his spirit forever bound to the motel. The legend spoke of room 7, the boy's favourite room, as the epicenter of the haunting. Guests reported strange noises, cold spots, and fleeting glimpses of the boy's apparition. Jenna realized with a shudder that she had become another chapter in the motel's dark history. Years later, the Pine Hollow Motel still stands on that desolate highway, a dilapidated monument to tragedy and terror. Travelers passing by tell tales of strange occurrences and an unsettling presence within its decaying walls. But one thing remains constant. Room 7 stays empty, its door always locked. Locals whisper that the boy's ghost still roams the motel, forever searching for peace, forever trapped in the place where he lost his life. And so, the legend of the Pine Hollow Motel lives on. A chilling reminder that some places hold onto their secrets, their sorrow, and their ghosts, long after the living have moved on.